Don't say anything you wouldn't want anyone to see or hear.
Hey,
Hey, you? Or so once this gets this is like the science behind doing this, by the way. Like all the clicks and going here. Okay. I think we're good. I hope we're good. We're good.
all right. Good evening. Welcome to Sutton Middle School's Go Team meeting, where we will follow the agenda as it has been emailed to you and publicly noticed. I am pleased to call this meeting of the Sutton Middle School Go Team to order. Our first order of business is to call roll. The secretary will now call roll.
Dr. Merriweather.
Present.
Ms. Houghton. Sullivan, present. Shauna. Present. Mr. Lamar.
Present.
Williams. Present. Mr. Edwards.
Present.
Mr. Everson.
Present.
Deegan. Present. Ms. Jones. Present. Great. We have a quorum.
So our first order of business is to approve the agenda. This was provided to you and copies are here. Please take a moment to review the agenda. Are there any changes to this agenda? All right, may I have a motion to approve the agenda? Motion. A second. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. All opposed, please say nay or raise your hand. So all in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. All right, the agenda has been approved. Our second action item is we will review and approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting. The minutes have been provided to you. Are there any corrections? All right, since there are no corrections, may I have a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. All right, the previous meeting's minutes have been approved. We will now move to the discussion items on our agenda. Our next agenda item is the budget feedback presentation. Dr. Merriweather will walk us through the proposed school's draft budget, which was shared with everyone before the meeting. After the presentation, we will have a discussion about how the budget aligns with our school's strategic priorities. As we review the budget, it's important to focus on how any adjustments from the district's recommended funding support our school's goals. This is an opportunity for us as a Go Team to provide feedback and ensure that our school is making the most of its available resources. And now I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Just getting organized here. Okay. See how it looks, so those viewers online can see the presentation. But we're good to go. And so good evening, everyone. Welcome to our budget feedback meeting. I placed folders for everyone, and I see we have one person in the audience. Can we get Ms. Bennett a folder? We have any extra copies? And I also emailed this out ahead of time just for people to preview and note any questions in case you had any. So with that, let's jump right into it. So just reminding people of our meeting norms, this is a meeting of the Go Team. We invite and welcome contributions by every member, and we will follow our agenda and respect all ideas. And so here's our presentation and discussion. We are here right now at step 4, where we're looking at our budget choices. And this is the feedback meeting, which we must have between the 10th and the 14th of February, which we are on track. And so again, a brief synopsis of what during our Go Team feedback meeting, the principal will share the 25-26 strategic plan breakout and provide an overview of the school's draft budget. This meeting will provide an opportunity for us to discuss the proposed budget and how it supports our school's needs and key strategies, key strategic priorities for the upcoming school year. And so here's our strategic plan again. I know we've seen this making us about 2 million in one time. And so not going to read over this directly because nothing has changed. Our SMART goals and things that we reviewed before is still the same. And of course, if there are any questions about this, let me know about the strategic plan. Also to our strategic plan priority ranking, which we've reviewed several times as well. We rank this in order from 1 to 4, that things that we find important as a go team. Some of our parameters at our last meeting, you guys might remember this slide where we ranked our priorities, but also gave a rationale for them as well. And they're listed right here and in your box. So at this time, we're going to take and do a review and have some conversation of our fiscal year 26 signature program funding. Just as a reminder, bless you, as a reminder, we are not a turnaround school, so that information will not apply to us. And so here's an overview of our signature program fund. So if you recall at our last meeting, we requested and I shared information about the need to request for our signature program IB coach. I had shared that I had moved our world language teachers over to the signature programming fund, and of course, signature programming supplies and resources were a total of about $1 million based on the request. Well, I sent in a request, and this was the response that I received back, was that our signature program funds would be at about $341,000. And so while it is a huge gap from the 1,300,000, it's not anything to honestly be alarmed about, because the beautiful thing about this is we're able to keep our signature IB program coach, and we're able to keep money in the bank for programming supplies and resources. And so regarding those world language teachers, I was able to basically move those teachers back into our general fund. And when we get to the non-staffing tab in our presentation, you will see how money was just kind of reallocated around just from like traveling and stipends and things of that sort. I would like to remind everyone, the beautiful thing about this is that when we get to our reserve funds, we have about 291 grand, I believe, that we're able to use in our reserve fund that we have for the upcoming year. And so again, with that money in reserves, being able to still fund our teachers, we're not losing anyone. So we are in a good position as a school. Does anyone have any questions about anything I just shared?
Were you expecting them to come back with that low of a number? Okay.
Yeah, I was expecting it.
Ask for more and
And get the most that you can.
But what's your strategy in that request to really try to elevate BLI in recognition at the district level that it should be funded as a signature program?
So it was because again, I don't get the funds for that. And so it was a hope that we could, get close to the 1 million, which is you see 300 grand, but we'll take it. But that was kind of like my rationale behind that. Just seeing what they would come back. Yes.
Are they required to give us any?
For
You put forward that we want this extra money. Do they have to give us any of it?
funding model this year based on the needs of the school. And so
Okay.
technically they are, but again, it's only in the past, it's always been like a formula. And so this year, our budget team and budget office, they're basically doing based on the needs of the school. And so we kind of put in what you need, they kind of review it based on prior year's history and make a decision from there based on the needs. Any other questions about what we requested versus what we were approved for? And so this next slide is just a summary of our proposed staffing and non-staffing. As you recall, I went over this slide at our last meeting where it goes over the earned, the funded, the staff. And so this should be relatively easy because nothing changed besides the 6 world language teachers that we just spoke about. Those are being moved back into our staffing tab. So it's not under the signature budget, but it's into our general summary tab in our summary tab. So again, on the screen, it is hard to see, but these numbers are exactly the same from when we previously met. And so, and I'm just going through the slides as you have them in front of you as well. At any point you would like for me to stop and you make a note on something, please make me aware.
Could you help us understand where the world language teachers are? Are you going to go through that? We'll get
Yes,
there.
and so the world language teachers, if you look at, I think it's page 19, where it says teacher world language 6 through, yes, you should see 12 allotted there, making the difference from the 6 we had at the previous meeting to the 6, like I just said, that were added back, making it 12. Does everyone see that? Okay.
So if you have like a DLI science teacher, would they be counted as a world language teacher or a science?
Science.
Okay.
Yep.
What are the titles of the world language teachers?
Just teacher world language.
I'm not meant to be so dumb.
It's okay.
But I mean, it's just incognito.
You're fine. Any other questions about this page that was good? Is any other questions?
I guess, are the staffing changing for any of these from current year now to next year?
No, the
This is what we
staffing,
have today.
this is what we have today.
Okay.
And so, based on that, the only increase in staffing, that I recall is, I know we spoke about the counselor, last meeting about adding a 4th counselor, but that's the only really addition that we are getting for next week. So typically when we talk about our summary of position changes to support our fiscal year 26 budget, in the past, we've done a process where the positions we are creating, so if you've been on the GO team, we recall we created the instructional coaches and things of that sort, and then we removed the positions that we felt were no longer warranted. And so this year, it makes it a bit easier because we aren't creating any additional positions and we aren't removing any additional positions either. So what we have is working and there's not a need to take money, elsewhere to try to create a position just to create.
I mean, how many kids increase you are anticipating next year, and you don't think that's gonna cause any issues with the number of staff?
So it's really a moving target,
Okay.
So we are anticipating as each year we anticipate about a 40-50% student increase. But if you recall, last past school year, this school year, I should say, we had to hire 2 additional teachers based on the numbers. And so we had our reserve funds where we were able to just pull that money to hire for 2 teachers, would alleviated some of those classes as far as what that would kind of overpack due to our numbers. So, like I said, now we're projected about 50 over, but really when we get into August, September, and we see how the numbers look, we will know exactly which direction to go in.
Do we have a budget comparison for this year versus last year? Because I am used to the traditional school student success formula where you get a dollar amount per kid. And it
Yep.
sounds like this year they're really doing it differently where you say, I need 100 teachers and
So
IB coordinator.
The budget comparison, if you refer to the email I sent with the first actual presentation, that budget comparison is in that information. I know you were. Yeah, so we have.
It's like, are we losing money from APS? Because I know we talk about sometimes our school, we have the most kids in North Atlanta cluster, and we already get like less money for our schools. So I guess I'm curious how it compares to the money we got last year. Are we losing a good amount of funding?
We are, all schools are losing funding, they're losing funding, but I will, to answer your question, yes, we are. I wouldn't say it's a good amount, but a decent amount. And so I know, Joel, you have hard copies of the last so you just want to look at that comparison. We have that for you as well. All right. So the non-staffing tab overview, just as a reminder, there is a lot of flexibility that I use throughout the year with this non-staffing tab. And so again, not going to go over this line by line, but as you can see in our reserve, we're sitting good at, $291,000 there. But also you see teacher stipends, you see contracted services for instruction. So based on the needs throughout the year, I'm able to really move this money around based on what we need. So that's why I say there's really flexibility there. My biggest concern, honestly, is just looking at that 291 and then making the comparison with our numbers, making sure, we don't get an influx of 100 plus kids, having to then add additional teachers as well. So trying to basically plan and stabilize where we can have class sizes at the lowest possible going into the new school year with the intention of some of them raising, but it's still reasonable for teachers to teach. Any questions just about this non-staffing page with some of the specifics on here. All right, and again, non-staffing stipends, turnaround doesn't apply to us, and substitute. And so this next slide, going over our strategic plan breakout categories. Now, I was a little iffy about really updating this slide, but I did go ahead and do so because, as a reminder, we aren't necessarily requesting anything because we're staying where we are. But when we look at our priorities that we did mention about fostering academic excellence for all, I know at last year's governance meeting, we were in this phase, we added our additional connections teachers, but also our IB instructional coach as well that we're funding. Building a culture of student support, again, our connections teachers, our core counselors, and our IB instructional coach. Equipping and empowering leaders and staff. So we look at our counselors, our instructional coaches, our DLI ESOL coordinator, administration, SELPs, and just professional learning services. That's what I put in there when we talk about equipping and empowering leaders and staff. And to the right, you will see just the dollar amount, what that equates to. And last but not least, just creating a system of school support.
Is that right between the top one, you have 3 staff and the second one, you have 7 staff and it's the same dollar figure, 413, 335?
Well, oh, yes, thank you for catching. So the counselors, it would be the same because the counselors aren't funded by the schools, they're funded by the district.
Okay.
Yep, thank you for catching that, yep. Any other questions? And so ideally, when we talk about our strategic plan, the easiest way to ask this question and to reflect on is, does our budget really reflect our strategic plan and what we're doing for kids and teaching and learning, about having the right personnel in place and having people to really support this work of moving that needle of student achievement. So here's our budget by function, where you will see our projected enrollment at 1638. And then you'll just see the line item there based on instruction, pupil services, and et cetera that goes from there, equating to about $22 million. Now, when we look at what we're doing with our budget, I always say each year, ideally, you want the blue category here to really focus the majority on instruction. And so when we look at this breakout of our budget by function in this chart here, this pie, right? Lamar, you're the math teacher. This pie graph here, 80% instruction. Anyone notice our next largest piece of the pie here would be school administration for obvious reasons. Dual campus school, almost 2,000 kids. And of course, it goes down from pupil services. And so for me, I'm beyond satisfied and just excited about this budget because again, it shows where we see the bulk should be going towards, which is instruction.
So this actually, I think, at least based on what I've read in sort of national studies, seems pretty good. Like if you look at the last 30 years of education, like teachers on average, like what we're spending on teachers have gone up inflation adjusted like 5% a year or something. But administrations have been bloated. 8% doesn't feel bloated compared to what I've read about like national averages. Do you think do they give you any sort of are there benchmarks that like say what schools are doing these days?
So there really is not a benchmark, but for me, our benchmark would be our student enrollment numbers. And so when we look at how many kids we have per grade level, the number of teachers. And so although there is an 8% for administration, we can't say that we want a well-run school, but we don't have the support in place to support teachers, to support families and students. And so a large school, ideally, it's synonymous with a large administrative team. And this is, if you look at the high school budgets, this is similar to theirs based on their numbers, large administrative team as well, based on, those numbers. Now, again, if we were a school of 600, 700 kids, then of course I would expect that 8% to be, 3%? Just based on that number, you have 2%. So I think it's relatively on par with what's expected. Any questions about the budget by function?
Sorry, what falls into the improvement of instructional services again? 3 staff there.
Yep, so that 2%. So if we go back to just our budget line item where we had kind of like where we're moving money, just those instructional services.
Yeah.
And so that's in that non-staffing page in the presentation, based on what we're using for instructional, like professional development, professional learning. And these are some of our questions when we talk about alignment and school level flexibility. We have a couple ways we can look at these questions. If you have one of these questions that you're looking at that's just pressing on your heart, feel free to just respond back to that question as we kind of reflect on our budget for the upcoming fiscal year.
So the staff number stays exactly the same year to year, even with potentially 100 more kids?
Based on,
Wait till enrollment happens
Yep.
and then see if you need to add a
yeah,
teacher.
based on your projected enrollment, yep.
What is the average class size?
Average class size right now is about 25, 26.
What is the max in middle school with APS?
According to state law, I know it's in the 30s. I want to say it's 35, 34, somewhere around there,
Okay.
but it's like in the 30s. I have to get that number, just if you want an exact number we can pull.
No, it's okay. I'm
Yep.
generally curious.
So based on our budget, I just think about the last question there, the trade-offs, any programs or resources being adjusted or reduced, or how would that affect our students and staff? So do we think there are any trade-offs within our budget?
All right, so I've been thinking about our meeting last time and the metrics around science and, I've got a 8th grader, 6th grader, and then a 4th grader, Few Rivers, and he was talking about their STEAM days and science, and my 6th grader was like, yeah, we don't put those anymore in middle school. Where they got engineers come in and Georgia Tech kids and kind of creating this excitement and energy around science. And then, going back to the last meeting, looking at our science numbers, is there something else that we can and should be doing? It doesn't necessarily fall in this budget, but maybe it's PTA supported, maybe it's just sort of some other initiative among the science teachers. That's the one area where we as a school are kind of lagging.
Yeah.
Are we spending too much on sort of teacher support and should be focusing on the fundamentals of science to get those numbers up? That's
Yeah, I would say, in response to that, when we talk about the support and the level of instruction, and let's just target 8th grade, for example, because that's the tested science grade. The level of support that students are receiving, the types of activities and lessons, teachers have been receiving district support, school support, additional trainings that the coaches have been going on and pushing into our science classrooms, just ensuring that the level of instruction, that the rigor is there. And so again, more hands-on activities, more labs, things that we are encouraging and pushing more. And I think just within our budget, having just funds set aside for particular days, which again, if you know me, you've been around, innovation is the name of the game for me. Things like that, I would be open to if there was a need to do like science, theme days, to really get people in the building and to really build this love for science with our kids.
I like the idea too. I don't think it's necessarily a cost in the budget. Like Sarah Smith used to do high touch, high tech. That was PTA sponsored. And I think there are enough people in our community that may have connections with, like I'm an architect, right? So architect, engineers, that kind of thing, who could get, if you were interested, get not turn the budget on it, but get the PTA.
Kind of a middle school equivalent of like a high touch.
Yeah.
I'm interested in knowing if they even have middle school programs, and I'm familiar with both of those programs. So it would be interesting, but I do think it would be worth a look into to see, because I think about, we do have funds set aside for field trips, and that's what high touch, high tech sort of falls under. But definitely, I think with the budget that we have now, we have the funds to support those type of initiatives. They also have professional funds set aside for professional development. So the CNI team, we are in the process of researching different conferences that they can go to. that will help, further their, I guess, development of innovative strategies, things that they can bring to their classroom.
And I think too, just the real world application, I feel like I'm screaming this, all the time, but particularly about science, when we're in different units, I'm always looking to explore, how can we get our kids out of the building, this real world application. This is Atlanta, so there's something for everyone. And so to the CNI side of things, just really getting with my curriculum and instruction team and working with teachers to make sure that we are planning these trips to bring it to real life for kids as they're going through different units of study throughout the semester. And again, we have a lot of money that we can send these kids from all grade levels around Atlanta to just really deepen their learning. Any other questions just about any of the questions on the board or before you?
I don't see, the budget is going down in theory with adding students
It looks like it's going up
but
by 2.5 million,
when you add all the extra students,
but only 100 more kids.
and there's I don't know, I just went through this at work, right? So
Like,
yes, in theory, but
contributing-
everything is getting more expensive with every day.
Yeah.
So there's inflation, right? Salaries go up. Expenses of the school go up. So yes, it's going up, but that doesn't mean it's actually going up.
Yeah.
So I guess my whole point of that was there's not a whole lot, you not changing a lot to me actually feels more comfortable. Because I do think a lot of things are working well. I know there's always room for improvement, but I think there are creative ways that we can try to layer on some of these experiences without fundamentally changing what you've been doing.
Yeah.
So I actually feel more comfortable that there aren't a lot of changes.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I look at our data, when I look at it compared to similar schools like ours, and just even some of the recognition that we received by the state, the governor, we're doing some things that are exciting and is working well. But to your point, it is an opportunity to continue to get stronger in all areas. The things that we're already doing well, but the areas we know that, hey, we really need to push here, just being a bit more intentional with, like you said, to your point of not requiring as much money to get certain things done for kids. And just being honest, that highlight for all of us is just science. Making sure that we can really improve those scores year after year. So this is another slide on district and cluster priorities. How do these proposed changes align with district and cluster priorities? If the district has allocated funds for initiatives such as signature programming, how are those reflected in the budget? And if we are sharing staff, how will this affect student support? So starting from the bottom up, we aren't sharing staff, so we are good to go there. Allocated funds for signature programs, we just went over and reviewed IB instructional coach, and just resources, funds for resources and program materials for IB that we have in that budget. And of course, as a district, we know the focus is literacy and math, numeracy and literacy. And so I think, our continuous improvement plan, strategic plans directly align with that of the district and our cluster priorities.
To go to the line items of some of the support staff, what does the restorative practices coach do?
Essentially, a restorative practice coach is similar to a behavior specialist, where those SEL skills, you're teaching teachers working with children, you have a caseload based on the behaviors that kids are exhibiting. That's an individual who would work with improving behavior with those kids. Of course, giving teachers tools and strategies for classroom management.
Do we have two of them, or one says 202 day and one says 211 day?
Yeah, depending on the building leader, if you feel like that person should work additional days based on the work they're doing, their workload, you can make it a longer work year, calendar year for them, or a shorter one. So it's really the difference.
I know we've talked about school discipline being an area that you all have made great progress in. So I guess, do we still feel like we need two of those?
So essentially what you're looking at now, those aren't saying that we have two of those. Those are saying those are the different positions that are available within the district. And so we don't have any restorative practices. Actually, we have the best middle school discipline data out there. And so each year we have decreased from a 52 0.52 to a 0.46.
So I remember.
And yeah, absolutely.
Teachers are able to handle a lot in the classroom and,
Yeah.
it helps the children.
And-
Sure.
And that's why last year we opted not to bring back our behavior specialist. Remember, we had one that was part of the discussion because we felt that, with us losing the COVID funds, that was not anything we wanted to pull out of our budget, especially there wasn't a direct need for a person dealing with behavior throughout the day.
Got it.
Yep.
So the school administration and school support sections are what you have, but teachers page is not.
Correct.
The right way to look at it. Okay.
Yep, and I'm just going to it as well.
So we have two different attendance specialists.
As a district. So again, the positions you see on the left-hand side, just because they're there, doesn't mean that we technically have it. And so when you look at the staff, that's the column you want to look at on the right-hand side. When you look at the numbers, so
See,
that's how
okay,
you
where
can
you
determine.
see it on it.
That's
So
absolutely
like we have 4 counselors and that's the
Correct.
only one on that page.
correct.
That
Any other questions while Fran reviews the different positions? Any other questions, just about, district, priorities, where we are as a school, and just that direct alignment? So now comes our discussion of reserve and holdback funds. And sorry that it's small on the screen, let me go to it on my page. So jumping into this discussion, I did note on here, and I aligned it with the priority, where $130,000 set aside in any event that we need an additional teacher based on numbers. If we look at teacher stipends to meet the needs of our world language teachers going back in our general fund, remember we removed them from the signature and put them in the general fund. I had to again move money around. So to kind of even out the budget, $38,000 I took from teacher stipends, but the goal would be to, once we get our reserve funds, to move that 38 grand back for teacher stipends to pay them for the extra work and some of the things that they're doing internally in the building to support our strategic plan. And of course, that remaining balance of 123, additional resources, equipment, professional development, teaching supplies. And as I said earlier, there is flexibility based on the needs of the school as we progress throughout the year. So again, we look at our reserve funding, we're doing pretty well as far as the funds that we have. Any questions about the reserve and the thought process behind the reserve? All right. So where we're going, our next meeting will be the budget approval meeting. During that meeting, we'll review the budget. We'll be updated based on feedback from the staffing conference with my cluster superintendent and other district leaders. And we will have to take action after I have the staffing conference and we come back to our third and final budget meeting of the year. And it must be approved by March 15th. And I believe our next Go Team meeting is March 11th. Okay, so it's March 11th at 5:30. So we're still on track and doing great timing regarding that final budget approval meeting.
So that one cut is the only thing from the district that's changing from last meeting. Right. Going from 1 million to 300,000. Yep.
Yeah, that's
Everything else, they're essentially good with at this point.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think that's a win, honestly.
What's next? Cluster review between the 17th and 21st. HR staffing conferences. These are the timelines that I'll be following in March. Again, the final Go Team approval meeting after the staffing conference, and we will take action before March 14th at our March 11th meeting.
Are staffing conferences when teachers tell you that they're not planning to return?
No, that is basically when I meet with the human resources director, and essentially it's going over positions aligned with the budget. So it's just a lot of dialogue about making sure numbers match, making sure we have allocations that match and things of that sort. So that's actually, as far as teachers saying they aren't going to return, we've actually already done that. They received their surveys, what, about a few weeks ago? About 2-3 weeks ago, where they were able to determine if they would be returning or not. And those returning and they honor that return, they get like a small stipend that the district will give them. I think it's like 200, 300 bucks that they will get at the following year. So
That's great that you know already what positions you'll need to hire for.
yep. And so for me right now, just being transparent, we have 99% of our staff that said they are returning. We only have one teacher who is moving out of the state. And so, of course, we will have to hire for that position. But I am very excited about the upcoming year when we talk about our retention rate. I do believe that this will be the highest retention that we've seen in our school in a long time. The beautiful thing about this is each year our retention rate has gotten higher and higher and higher. And again, that's culture, that's climate, that's how we're doing things and how we're treating people and what we're doing for kids. And so I'm excited to see those numbers for this upcoming school year.
That's great.
Yep. So with that, that is all that I have on my end. So I'm going to turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Dr. Merriweather, for sharing this information. As a GO team, we have the opportunity to provide input on the budget, which we just went over, before it moves forward. Is there any other discussion that we need to have before, because we're going to take a vote in a second. So is there any other discussion or questions that we have on the budget before we move forward?
I know, Brian, I know you were interested in like the restorative practices, like positions. What are your thoughts on that? I know you mentioned it.
Sorry, it was one that I was not looking at the number, but I was like curious what they did and if it was like a mental health for the faculty. I know y'all have a tough job. I probably at least be one.
You might be on something.
Yes.
Staff.
Fine.
Go back to the budget. I have an idea. Let's go back. Yeah, but definitely our counselors do a superb job of really providing mental health services. And also to the point of mental health, there's a new program that is rolling out now. It's a 24/7 hotline for mental health for kids where they can just call in, share what's going on, and the kids can get support 24/7 throughout.
I saw that come through,
Yep.
From APS.
Yep.
Yep.
I guess knowing that DLI hiring has been such a pain point, is there any solution with staff and how you utilize the resources to help with that? I know with the DLI program, you have the coordinator and you have the assistant principal, Ms. Medina, Mr. Vance. But I guess, is there any opportunity? How do we help support the staffing of the program?
Yeah, and so I think bigger picture, when we talk about the DLI program as a district, it's not so much that we can do as a school because there are so many things when it comes to immigration just simply out of our control. And so, like I told the DLI family today, the reality of this, our DLI program, families have to be okay and understanding that with the program, there will be challenges with getting teachers from different countries over to our country. And especially now at all times, we don't know what that will look like. But just trying to stay in front of it, I know just being open with everyone. We had our person, Mr. Mario Rodriguez, he just started this week. So he started this week with us and those families have been getting updates. But me as a principal, and I'll take this over anything, is that you find someone who's talented and you want them to join your school and kids. However, I was not going to rescind a position on something that was out of his control. And so again, it was a tough spot, but again, to your point of the staffing piece of it, certain things like that, they're out of my control as a principal. And so I am hoping, and I know with our budget deficit as a district, that we can see some support when it comes to staffing, our DLI positions. But the reality of it is that is a challenge that other DLI schools face as well. It's just so happened we picked the shortest straw this year and we were in that position.
Would it make you evaluate candidates differently and be biased towards some of these already here, assuming in your pool you have those options?
I think so. And I think the reality is it's one of those things where you can't have your cake and eat it too. Whereas you want someone to be in that classroom, but if you get the wrong person, the person isn't good, the person isn't doing what's best for children, now you're upset about the quality of the teacher. But when we try to get a good quality teacher who's dynamite and the person's having, due to things out of his control, due to immigration laws and things of that sort. It's like, it's no happy medium there. So it's like, do you want the crappy teacher, for lack of a better way, or do you want the one of quality who's committed to being here? And again, with our DLI program, we've had a 100% retention rate. And so once they get over here, they get acclimated to Sutton, they don't go anywhere. And other schools can't say that. So I'm proud to say that as well.
We only have one teacher that's on a visa. Is that true?
No, no.
Because the visas are difficult even to renew. We have several.
Yeah, we have several and they go through that process
It's
like
not
a year and a half.
You know, it's
Correct.
an ongoing.
Correct. And it's a long process.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
And so,
renewals are a lot easier than, like, you're not having teachers get yanked out for renewal.
correct. Yep. They just have to start early on just to kind of get the ball rolling with that. But I am excited just for our upcoming, school year. We're going to be again 100% staff with our DLI program. And again, we'll continue to be creative and, do the things that we can to support those kids for the upcoming school year. Any other questions about anything?
Thank you for getting that over the goal line. I know my eighth grader Oliver is excited about him. And I guess they just met him this week or last week.
Yeah, he was introduced to all his classes and the kids to start clapping and cheering. It was fun. I just laughed. They're funny. But he's excited to be here. The kids, I could just tell they're excited. Because they've been having like dual classes in the media center and different places, but they loved it. It was an opportunity for them to meet new kids and stuff. So again, we tried to make it work as best as we could.
So after this meeting, Dr. Merriweather will take the approved draft to the cluster superintendent and HR staffing conference. Following those meetings, we will meet again to review any final updates and vote on our school's final budget recommendation. I will now entertain a motion to approve the budget. The draft budget.
All motion.
A second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
That has been approved. All right. Information items. We will now move on to the first information item, which is the principal's report. Dr. Merriweather, you back on?
Yeah, so I know what I was going to say about the DLI. You guys beat me to it, but again, that's staff. All good to go there. Nothing else on my end. We're rocking and rolling. Any questions for me? Just about anything? My favorite color, favorite Netflix.
I was asking my eighth grader before I came how like lunch is going. He said they really enjoy the free lunch, the open seating.
Yes, so.
The lunch is very good.
Yes, so that's an update. Our eighth graders have done an amazing job. I believe there's always an opportunity for us to better prepare them for high school. And so knowing that they can go to the cafeteria, they walk by themselves, they leave by themselves, and they can sit wherever they want. And we told the eighth graders clear their town halls, hey, if you mess this up, you're going to go back to, being treated like normal eighth graders. And so they really hold each other accountable. They don't want to lose it. So they're really, just that level of accountability is there. But it's beautiful to see that, they see what it's like. Because in high school, no one's walking to the cafeteria. They're not saying, sit at this table. And honestly, they've done such a remarkable job. So the goal is to create that culture here at this campus where seventh graders can do it, eighth graders can do it. And again, I'm sure, and we're the only middle school doing this. I did check. But again, it's just about preparing these kids. So I'm always thinking with the team, what can we do better, differently to make sure they get a true experience and true exposure to what high school is going to be. So thank you for that positive feedback.
Those are the little things too that they will go home and say like, ooh, I love Sutton, or the things that can make them be like, ooh, I don't like this or that. So it's the little things that go a long way.
And seeing the kids listen to the kids, I tell all the adults all the time, they're our little customers. Let's make sure we're hearing them out, getting the feedback. And honestly, when kids come to me instead of shutting them down, I actually like to listen to them. I like listening to our student council because the things like that are so simple, I'm like, didn't even think of that. Let's give it a try. And I think just as a school, we're in a place where we have an administrative team where we're open to trying new things, we're innovative, and we're like, if we don't get it right, we'll fix it and we'll just try better next time. But that's what it's about, the innovation and trying new things, because just because something's never been done doesn't mean you can't do it. Well, that's it for the principal's report on my end. There's no other questions for me.
Thank you, Dr. Merriweather. All right, we will now move on to our announcements. We do have an announcement from the Go Team office. Declarations for Go Team elections are open until February 28th. We need both parent, staff, community, and swing members for our Go Team for next year. If you're interested and or know of anyone else who would be a good fit for our team, please direct them to apsstrongschools.com to declare their candidacy. If you have any questions, contact the Go Team office. And then are there any other announcements? Well, I do have one more. Before we can vote on our actual budget, everyone has to finish their training in order to be able to vote. So please make sure they did send it. Well, I got mine at least. Okay, so let's figure this out. So make sure we log into Ellis and we have to complete that before. Some people didn't get it, I guess.
Well, you have to do that every year? The budget?
Yes, I think it's different for each year.
Okay. Yeah,
And since they changed the like process.
By the way, how long does it
think
take
it's-
you to complete it?
I'm not sure, I didn't do it this year.
Okay.
On my list that I need to make sure I did it, but I hadn't gotten an email, so.
Yeah.
Mine did go to my junk mail, or like I had to approve it.
Oh.
Just like to make-
Just check it and see if you've been enrolled in the course on Ellis, and we'll let you know if you're enrolled. If you're enrolled, you should take it.
Mr. Evans, do you mind just, as we get closer to that date, just sending a reminder? Just, yeah,
I'll make sure, yeah, we need everybody to vote, so I'll fix it.
we have to abstain and we can't,
Yeah.
our vote can't be.
Awesome. Thank you, I'll make sure, I'll send about 2 weeks before and then probably a week before, I'll remind them. All right, any other announcements anybody wants to make? Okay, awesome, we have now reached the end of our agenda. Is there any additional business at this time? May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. The meeting is adjourned at 6:20.